remember the Sega CD? If so, prepare to feel old. The first of two failed add-ons for Sega's successful Genesis console, the Sega CD was released in October of 1992. I'll give you a moment to do the math. Done? Now that you've realized how old the Sega CD is and how old that makes you, let's take a trip back to the early 90s to have a quick look at the system. I have to say, things are a lot smaller and a lot blotchier than I remember. Anyway, much has already been said regarding why it didn't succeed, so I won't go into that. Instead, I'd like to show you some of what it did do, using some items from my personal collection. Almost forgot! When you see a prompt on the screen, quickly press that button on your controller. It'll keep me from hurting myself, which I certainly appreciate. The most obvious feature of the Sega CD adds the CD-ROM drive to the Sega Genesis, greatly expanding the amount of storage space available for games over what cartridges offer. However, it also added new hardware which enabled features like sprite rotation and scaling, better allowing it to compete with its rival, the Super Nintendo. Also first on Sega CD, this gigantic plastic box, which Sega's US branch would inexplicably continue selling games in all the way through to the death of the Sega Saturn. Some titles also use the slightly more modest cardboard box instead. Just a reminder, be sure to hit those controller buttons. You should have tapped down on the D-pad there. Sega released 3 models of the Sega CD. A front loader and a top loader that attached to the Genesis, and an all-in-one unit called the CDX. I don't have any of those. What I do have is the JVC XI, an all-in-one produced with permission from Sega, as a stipulation of the agreement that saw JVC provide parts for the Sega CD's disk drive. It's pretty boss. I also made sure to have 2 6-button controllers, because I had to play Street Fighter with a 3-button controller once, and it was kind of terrible. Let's pop in the game, shall we? Ow! The C button. You were supposed to press the C button. Don't forget.
What better place to start than with Sega's mascot, Sonic the Hedgehog? This is definitely one of the top titles on the system. The gameplay is classic Sonic with the same tight controls as its Genesis predecessors. The levels are fairly large with plenty of secrets, but occasionally confusing. Along with the usual goal of collecting gems in special stages, getting the best ending requires taking advantage of the new time travel mechanic to undo Dr. Robotnik's tampering with the past and create a better future. Also, Metal Sonic, you suck and I hate you. Next up, quite simply the best home version of Final Fight available on 16-bit consoles. The colors are a little drab, but otherwise it's head and shoulders above the SNES version. Sega actually handled this port themselves, and they crammed in everything from the arcade. All 3 characters, the industrial area that was left out on the Super Nintendo, and 2-player mode. I don't actually have any footage of that since I was playing by myself, but I assure you that you can team up with a friend to crack heads. Plus, it has a CD quality soundtrack and a time attack mode that isn't in any other version. Oh, and this.
Hello, Mike Hager here.
Hee Mr. Hager. So pleased to make your acquaintance. I believe...
Wonderful. Eternal Champions. Challenge from the dark side. Oh, I see what they did there. This series is basically Sega's answer to Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat, with SF-style gameplay and MK-style violence. I'm not a big fan, but even I'll admit it's a big improvement over the first one. The graphics are better, there are more characters, and the gameplay has changed for the better. Oh, and sometimes this happens. Good luck doing that on purpose. Honestly, the game makes you jump through too many hoops for my taste. I've never been interested enough to go to the trouble of unlocking the hidden characters, and I've certainly never killed an opponent on purpose. Still, there's a decent amount of content and made good use of the hardware, so fighting fans may want to give it a try. Sylphie! This is a pretty good shooter. Probably. I can't even get through the first level since the previous owner of this copy didn't take the best care of it. Aw. Lethal Enforcers looks terrible, but it's pretty decent. It's what you'd expect from a light gun game. No more, no less. I happen to like light gun games, so that's fine with me. Too bad I don't actually have a Genesis light gun. Playing with a control pad is not quite optimal. We'll get to the Sega CD library's biggest problem in a moment, But here's a less infamous one. Sega CD versions of games that weren't really better than what you get on a cart. WWF Rage in the Cage isn't the worst offender. It has the most playable wrestlers of any WWF game of the era, including what I think may be Rick Martel's only video game appearance ever, and a unique match type. However, just like all the other 16-bit WWF games, every wrestler is built off the same generic sprite and uses the same moves, with the exception of a mildly useful finisher. Also, it's mysteriously missing tag team matches, a standard feature in every other title built on this engine. Honestly, unless you really like FMV, Rage in the Cage just doesn't stand out against his siblings like it should. Now, here's what really sank the Sega CD: lousy FMV games. It goes without saying that the system didn't exactly provide high-quality video, but the technology was pretty new at the time. The real problem is, how do you interact with pre-recorded video? Prizefighter clearly didn't have a good answer. I mean, seriously, what is even happening here? How do I know when to block or dodge? What determines when I can or can't land a punch? If I really want to see boxing in black and white, why should I play this instead of watching Raging Bull? This is just, ugh.
You can do it, kid! You can do it!
Sorry, kid, but no. No, I can't.
Ladies and gentlemen, this bout is over. Slam!
Oh, this is going to be great, I can tell. Slam City, starring a Chicago Bull you probably don't remember because he was on the team at the same time as Michael Jordan, shows that Digital Pictures didn't learn all that much from Prizefighter. It seems to be a bit more interactive. You can go for a shot whenever you want, and you seem to be able to break right or left and charge for the hoop, but the fatal flaw remains. Quite simply, it's hard if not impossible to tell whether you'll succeed or fail. I have no idea why one shot will be unopposed, while another will be mercilessly swatted down. I didn't manage a single steal, and every drive to the hoop ended in humiliation. What am I supposed to do?
Yo! This $5, go buy some game.
How about I buy another game instead?
Unfortunately, that's my whole Sega CD collection. I guess I'll have to head online to get you some more video.
Oh no, I forgot! I didn't have the internet in the early 90s. Aw, man. It'd take forever to download a 30 meg AVI and a 33.6 modem.
Sorry guys, I guess that's it for now. I hope you had fun taking a look at the Sega CD with me. Huh. Nothing bad happened.